welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Nina. I'm a life transformation coach, and today I'm going to be answering another question that you have sent in. Actually, this question, so many people sent in this week that I knew I had to make a video about it right away because it is a concern for so many people, and that is, how can I cope when the news is making me feel so anxious? I think just about everybody is feeling like this right now. There are just so many things going on, and every time we turn on the news, it seems like more and more things are happening, and there's so many different situations happening that I think firstly we are just so overwhelmed by the amount of negative news that we are consuming every single day. So it is no wonder that we are feeling anxious or that we are feeling sad. I know for myself that yesterday I woke up just feeling so upset, and even though I'm a very emotionally aware person, it took me a few minutes to realize that my sadness was because I have been consuming so much more news lately. This is something that I don't normally do. I really try to keep up with the headlines and I check in here and there, but I don't characteristically just have the news on for hours and hours and hours. And because of everything going on, I've been watching news so much more frequently than usual, and I know that it has definitely negatively affected me. When we watch news, we can feel sad, we can feel angry, we can feel confused, we can feel worried, and of course we can feel anxious, and that is completely understandable. So if you are feeling this way right now, firstly, we have to make sure we are validating our feelings and understanding that it's normal to have these feelings when there are so many situations going on. It wouldn't be healthy if we just tried to stuff down our feelings, or if we just tried to keep a smile on our face when we are experiencing the depth of these negative emotions, because these are real life things that we are going through, and many of them really are causes for concern. However, that does not mean that we have to walk around in a state of anxiety all the time or experience this much anxiety all the time. So please know that there are things that we can do to feel better, to experience less suffering and less negative emotions, even though these situations are really occurring. So one thing that we can do is to really get to the root of why these situations are bothering us so much. Are we catastrophizing situations, or are these things that are going to truly affect our lives directly? Are these things that we are kind of speculating about for what the problems could be in the future, or are they real concerns for us right now? And that's going to really be very individual. We have to think about that for our own self and for our own lives and for our own families, because a lot of times we just get so wrapped up in everything, they seem like bigger problems than they are, or we feel that they're going to affect us more than they actually do in the long run. So we just have to sit down and get that assessment for what is really going on for us and why we are experiencing these emotions to such a degree. We have to understand that the news cycle is 24 hours, so we just have this barrage of negative news all the time. And not only that, we also have social media now, so we really can't escape this. We are seeing these situations and these negative images play out over and over and over, and you can only imagine what that does to our psyche, just consuming all this negativity all the time. And that's why we are feeling so bad, and we can start to feel that the whole world is bad because all we are seeing and all we are thinking about are these negative and frightening situations in a lot of cases. So we start to associate that with feeling like everything in the whole world is terrible. We forget about all the good things in the world. But again, there are many things that we can do to help ourselves feel better, and it's important that we do, because when we are feeling so negative, when we are feeling so anxious, it really starts to affect so many things in our life. It's hard to focus, it's hard to be present, it is hard to be our best self and to carry on with our normal responsibilities, because we are having these very negative internal emotions, and it can also affect a lot of our relationships and even our occupation. So it's so important that we really do try to feel better about situations, even though these terrible things are happening. So let's go ahead and jump right into how we can help ourselves cope with these situations. So the first thing that we can do, we kind of touched upon already, and that is to validate our own feelings. We have to understand also that everybody has different reactions and different emotions. So we can't be upset if someone else has a different reaction. So one person may feel very angry, another person may feel very sad, another person could be completely indifferent. And all of these reactions are appropriate and valid to the person that is feeling them. So we have to kind of feel that we are validating our own feelings and our own way that we are reacting to the situation. Again, we don't want to ignore the situation. We don't want to ignore also how we are feeling. So that's kind of the first step. And the second step is to express ourselves. And we want to do so in a way that doesn't really aggravate the situation. So we want to find maybe a neutral party that could listen to our point of view or maybe lend a sympathetic ear. That could be a friend or a family member or even a therapist. Or if you are a person that is not really ready to talk out their feelings, maybe you need a little time to process them first, you could write in a journal. But we want to make sure that we are expressing our feelings. We don't want to keep these things bottled in because these are very big events in a lot of cases, especially with all the different things that are happening right now. And so we need to validate those feelings and we need to also express them. Once we've done that, however, we must understand that we get to control how much focus we are giving the situation. And that's not to say these situations aren't necessarily serious. That does not mean that they need to be the focus of our day and our life 24 hours a day. We get to decide how much of the time we are going to choose to focus on them. So that may mean for you that you need to turn off the news at some point or to, set specific limits, because if we are consistently consuming these news, is going to be right in the forefront of our lives all the time. And we have to remember that there are so many other aspects of our life. This is one thing that is happening, but we also have all these other things in our life that are wonderful and joyful. And these are things that we could also choose to focus on. So we need to find that balance ourselves. We're going to be very unhappy if we continuously make these news stories the focus of our life. So once we've expressed ourselves, sometimes it's better to find other things to do or find other things to talk about, because we're just going to kind of perpetuate this negativity if we talk about it again and again and again. It's going to become more and more upsetting for us. Another thing that I've seen happen is, without realizing it, sometimes we use news as a form of escapism, and I have a whole video on escapism. I will go ahead and link it down in the description box below. But there are healthy forms of escapism and unhealthy forms of escapism. And sometimes what happens is, when we are upset about other situations in our life, we may hyper focus on another area. And when it's something like news and it's something that is very, very negative, it's going to have negative consequences in our life. It's going to start to affect, again, our relationships. It's going to start affecting our psyche, and we're going to start to feel that things are a lot worse than they are in the world. So we want to be realistic and think, are we using the news as a form of escapism, as a way to kind of, distract ourselves from other problems or issues in our life? And if so, it's better that we either address those issues. Well, definitely we need to address those issues, but if we need some form of escapism to utilize sometimes, we just want to make sure that it's something that is healthy for us. And I'm not saying that news is always escapism, but if it happens to be for you and it's causing negative consequences, that's something that you need to take into consideration as well. Another thing we have to think about when we are watching these things play out in the news and getting so upset is that we only have control over some things in life. There are some things in life that we can't control. So when we're constantly focusing on these things that we really have no control over whatsoever, we are going to start to feel helpless. We're going to feel hopeless because we feel like there is nothing that we could do. So we could brainstorm things that we could do to help us feel better or to potentially help the situation in our own life. So for example, if we are thinking about the pandemic and we are getting more and more worried, what are things that are in our control that we can do to make ourselves feel better? Could we make sure that we are taking the appropriate safety precautions? Could we make sure that we are keeping up our social connections in safe ways. What are the things that we could control that could make us feel better? Because if we just watch these news stories and we feel hopeless, that is just going to kind of spiral and spiral and make us feel worse and worse and worse. Another thing that we can do is to make sure that we are scheduling things in our life that are enjoyable, that are joyful, that remind us of the good things in life. Because again, if we have all this negative focus all the time, we just start to feel that the world is a terrible place and our own life is terrible. Even when that is not the case at all, there are so many things that we can do that are fun, that are enjoyable, that get our mind off all of this for a while. It could be reading a book, it could be watching a movie, it could be painting, it could be playing a musical instrument, whatever you are interested in. But make sure at the beginning of the day, you put it on your schedule that you are going to spend time doing other things. Things that restore your faith in humanity, things that make you feel good about the world. And you could do things that make you feel like a good person. Maybe you could write a letter to someone that you haven't seen in a while, or do something kind, or volunteer your time. Be the change that you want to see. You can be the positive one. You don't have to, get sucked into this negativity and perpetuate it. You can say, it's going to stop with me. I'm going to do all that I can to make this world a better place. And that's something that tends to make people feel better right away. Something else that is so important right now is that we practice really vigorous, extreme self-care, from the basics of getting enough sleep, getting enough exercise, eating well, checking in with ourselves every single day to see how we are feeling. And if we are feeling upset or anxious, what are the things that we can do that we know make us feel better? Is it going for a walk? Is it practicing yoga? Is it meditating? Is it taking a bath? What is going to help us to feel better? We need to figure out what our needs are and figure out how to meet these needs, because when we are feeling well, we tend to be more resilient and we tend to be able to consume media without it consuming us. So we really want to make sure that we're really taking care of ourselves during this time. And lastly, it is so important that we focus on gratitude, remembering that there are so many wonderful things that are still happening in our life and in this world. I know it seems like there are so many negative things happening, but there are so many positive things happening too. We just get overwhelmed by the negative, and we have a negativity bias as humans, so it's easier for us to notice the negative things that are going on. But if we consciously take time to think about on a daily basis what we are grateful for. We could probably think of 1,000, 2,000 things a day that we are grateful for if we really put the time into thinking about that. And we know that what we focus on expands in our life. So we want to make sure that we are spending at least as much time as we are consuming something negative, that we are engaging in things that are positive. And gratitude is a wonderful place to start, because it really does help us to see all the blessings and all the good things in our life, because they are always there. And we have to remember that no, we cannot always control everything that is happening in the world, but we do have control over our response and over our reaction. So when we realize that, it can make our suffering a lot less, because we can realize that we do have some control. It's not that we have to be a victim to everything that is happening in the world. We can still create our own life. We can still have our own thoughts. We can have our own reactions, our own emotions. And these are things that we can control, that we have a say in. And again, going back to news specifically, we get to decide how much time we are spending watching the news and thinking about the news. So please know, no matter how you're feeling, no matter what emotions are coming up for you, they are valid. It is understandable that you're feeling like this. It is a very unique situation happening in the world, and we have no idea, what situations will come up in the future. And that's okay, because these external circumstances, they're not all that your life is about. Your life has so many different aspects and so many different facets. And so we can choose to focus on other things. We can acknowledge that these things are happening. We can acknowledge how they make us feel, but we can also place focus on the different parts of our life that also deserve our time and energy and attention. We don't want these things to consume us so much that we are ignoring the joyful, happy, wonderful parts of our life. So please know again that it's okay to feel how you are feeling, but you have more control over how you feel and how you respond than you think. So I truly hope this video was helpful to you today. If it was, please like it, share it with somebody else. Do become a subscriber if you aren't one already. We definitely want you to stay connected. And I thank you so much for spending time with me today. Have an absolutely amazing day.